Hello and welcome to this final first look exploring session looking at the Tragedy of Nero by someone, printed in 1624 and produced presumably sometime before that. But we don't know anything really about this text at all beyond that it was printed and it exists. We've rather enjoyed it so far in all its various different directions. It's doing lots of interesting things. It's playing with some really nice bits of irony. There's a bit of Freudian analysis that can be added to characters. And some just sustained action of fire everywhere. As the god of fire, Nero, Lucan, and Seneca, and Antonius today is
Aliki, not in Rome, but in Athens.
Reading Tigellinus, Milichus, Piso, Epaphroditus, first friend, physician, and Galba is
Lois in London.
We're really going to struggle to remember who we are at any given moment. Reading man, Neophilus, Scaevinus, Poppaea, second friend, Patronius, and second Roman is
Alan, definitely confused.
And reading woman, Nymphidus, Flavius, young man, Enanthe, and first Roman is
Lynn. I'm all the way in the northwest of the United States.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading chorus, messenger, and stage directions, and generally keeping everything moving forward. We are at Act 3, Scene 4, and we're reading the second half of the play. Rome is tad ablaze. Small fire may have occurred. It is arson, but never mind. Act 3, Scene 4, soft music. Enter Nero above with a timbrel.
Aye, now my Troy looks beauteous in her flames. The Tyrrhenian seas are bright with Roman fires, whilst the amazing mariner afar, gazing on the unknown light, wonders what star heaven hath begot to ease the aged moon. When Pyrrhus, striding over the cinders, stood on ground where Troy late was, and with his eye measured the height of what he had thrown down, a city, great in people and in power, walls built with hands of gods, he now forgives the 10 years' length, and thinks his wounds well healed, bathed in the blood of Priam's 50 sons. Yet am I not appeased? I must see more than towers and columns tumble to the ground. It was not the high-built walls and guiltless stones that Nero did provoke. Themselves be wood to feed this fire, or quench it with their blood.
Enter a woman with a burnt child.
Oh, my dear infant, my child, unhappy comfort of 9 months' pain. And did I bear thee only for the fire? Was I to that end made a mother?
I now begins the scene that I would have.
Enter a man bearing another dead.
Oh, father, speak yet. No, the merciless blow hath all bereft speech, motion, sense, and life.
O beauteous innocence, whiteness ill blacked, how to be made a coal didst thou deserve?
O reverend wrinkles, well becoming paleness, why hath death now life's colour given thee, and mocks thee with the beauties of fresh youth?
Why wert thou given me to be taken away so soon? Or could not heaven tell how to punish, but first by blessing me?
Why were thy years lengthened so long to be cut off untimely?
Play on, and fill the golden skies with cries, and pity with your blood men's eyes.
Where are thy flattering smiles, thy pretty kisses, and arms that want to writhe about my neck?
Where are thy counsels? Where thy good example, and that kind roughness of father's anger?
Whom have I now to leave my old age?
Who shall I now have to set right my youth?
Gods, if ye be not fled from heaven, help us!
I like this music well. They like not mine. Now in the tears of all men, let me sing, and make it doubtful to the gods above whether the earth be pleased or do complain.
But may the man that all this blood hath shed never bequeath to the earth an old grey head. Let him untimely be cut off before, and leave a course like all wounds and gore. Be there no friend at hand, no standards by, in love or pity moved to close that eye? Let him die, the wish and hate of all, not a tear to grace his funeral.
Exit man.
Heaven, you will hear that which the world doth scorn, the prayers of misery and souls forlorn. Your anger waxeth by delaying stronger, and now for mercy be despised no longer. Let him that makes so many mothers childless make his unhappy, and in her fruitfulness let him no issue leave to bear his name, or son to right a father's wronged fame. Our flames to quit, be righteous in your ire, and when he dies, let him want funeral fire.
And
Let
exit
heaven-
woman.
Let heaven do what it will. This I have done. Already do you feel my fury's weight? Rome is become a grave of her late greatness. Her clouds of smoke have taken away the day, her flames the night. Now, unbelieving eyes, what crave you more?
Enter Neophilus to him.
Save yourself, my lord. Your palace burns.
My palace? How? What traitorous hand?
Enter Tigellinus to them.
Oh, fly, my lord, and save yourself betimes. The wind doth beat the fire upon your house. The eating flame devours your double gates, your pillars fall, your golden roofs do melt, your antique tables and Greek imagery the fire besets. And the smoke you see doth choke my speech. Oh, fly and save your life.
Heaven, thou dost strive, I see, for victory.
And they exit. Yes, so we're going back into the zone. Nero showing deliberate sort of callousness there. We do have a moment there in the script. It was misplaced. That's why I didn't say it. That Nero actually literally sings and presumably plays with his timbrel along before the man says his final speech and exits. And I'm just wondering here, in performance practice terms, I don't know whether they turn up again later on, but we've had first, second, third, fourth Roman earlier. I'd quite like them, one or two of them, to be the woman and the man here in a performance. I like the idea that, ideally the sycophants who said, isn't he great? Earlier are the ones who suffer most. In fact, maybe one of the dead bodies, one of the dead, so three of them could come on, and just to give that an additional edge to it. I think it's not they're entirely separate characters within this text, but I'm liking that as an idea, just to again reutilize characters in ways. Alan.
Yeah, the problem with that is relying on the audience remembering who the heck was who and who said what earlier.
Well, they only left a minute ago.
Yeah.
In the previous scene. But you're right. I mean, we discussed the question of how extremely doubled we do. I mean, if it's not an extremely doubled, then we could make them clearly in that sense. Was Lynn waving? If not, I'll go to Lois first.
Well, I was wondering about that chorus. I mean, we haven't had a chorus before, and an offstage chorus singing, that's really quite unusual.
Well, I say the singing is misplaced. That's Nero singing after his speech. So the chorus is more just voices off, I think. I don't think they are a chorus in that sense.
Oh, I see. They're not meant to be singing.
No.
Yeah.
It's a misplaced stage direction, of which there are a few still remaining in this text.
Oh, right.
So in that sense, they shouldn't really be labelled chorus. They should just be labelled as people off. Voices off.
Okay, because that would be really very unusual for this
Yeah.
period.
Gods, if ye be not fled from heaven, help us.
Yes.
It's quite a
It turns into
distortion.
opera. The other thing is just that this is very derivative of something, which I suppose we can't really mention.
You
here.
absolutely can't. Don't even go there. I put that in the chat for a reason.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But hey, we're allowed to steal from things. It's fine. Stealing goes both ways for artists.
Yeah.
Lynn.
Although I think that these one-off characters mourning somebody while a person in power overhears. I think that's kind of a conventional trope. That might actually be from classical literature. I mean,
I
yeah.
don't know. We've definitely not really encountered it in any of the texts that we've done.
I feel like
don't
I have.
think
Maybe
we
I'm making that up in my delusional brain.
Yeah.
It's always possible.
Well, you
I mean, it
couldn't really
feels like it should be, and the nature of
Maybe that's all it
lamenting
is.
on some level is
Yeah.
definitely conventional. But whether
It would have to be by a chorus, though, because I mean, with the 3-character rule, you just couldn't have. I suppose you could just about get 3 people to do 2 lamenters and 1 person watching, but I mean, it would be difficult, especially because you have to have the bodies as well.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
it's as I say, this is said effectively our beginning of the second half, maybe a scene off depending on how we place it. I think we're back in the zone. Let's continue Act 3. We've got quite a chunky scene coming up. Act 3, Scene 5. Enter Scaevinus and these the freedman Milichus.
Rob,
There's Nymphidus first.
Nymphidus has a monologue.
Oh, did I stop you before Nymphidus?
Yes.
I apologise. I didn't realise that the scene hasn't ended. We didn't finish the last scene. I am so sorry. No, interesting. It's labelled in some editions as Scene 5, so as a separate scene in its own right. So we'll call this Act 3, Scene 5, and then we'll go into Act 3, Scene 6.
See how fate works unto their purposed end, and without all self-industry will raise whom they determine to make great and happy. Nero throws down himself, I stir him not. He runs unto destruction, studies ways to compass danger, and attain the hate of all. Be his own wishes on his head, nor roam with fire more than revenges burn. Let me stand still, or lie, or sleep. I rise. Poppaea some new favor will seek out, my wakings to salute. I cannot stir, but messengers of new preferment meet me. Now she shall make me captain of the guard. So well I bear me in these night alarms, that she imagined I was made of arms. I now command the soldiers, he the city, if any chance do turn the prince aside, as many hatreds, mischiefs threaten him. Ours is his wife, his seat and throne is ours. He's next in right that hath the strongest powers.
Exit Nymphidus, Act 3, Scene 5 or 6, depending on your point of view. Enter Scaevinus and Milichus.
O Troy, and O ye souls of our forefathers, which in your country spires were offered up, how near your nephews to your fortunes come, yet they were Grecian hands began your flame, but that our temples and our houses smoke, our marble buildings turn to be our tombs, burnt bones and spurned at corses fill the streets, not Pyrrhus, nor thou Hannibal art author. Sad Rome is ruined by a Roman hand. But if to Nero's end, this only way heaven's justice hath chose out, and people's love could not but by these feebling ills be moved, we do not then at all complain our harms. On this condition, please us, let us die, and cloy the Parthian with revenge and pity.
My master hath sealed up his testament. Those bondmen which he liketh best set free, given money, and more liberally than he used. And now, as if a farewell to the world were meant, a sumptuous banquet hath he made, yet not with countenance that feasters use, but cheers his friends, the whilst himself looks sad.
I have from Fortune's temple taken this sword. May it be fortunate, and now at least, since it could not prevent, punish the evil. To Rome it had been better done before, but though less helping now, they'll praise it more. Great sovereign of all mortal actions, whom only wretched men and poets blame, speed thou the weapon which I have from thee. 'Twas not amidst the temple monuments, in vain reposed. Somewhat I know hath done. Oh, with new honours let it be laid up. Strike boldly, arm so many powerful prayers of dead and living hover over thee.
And though sometimes with talk impertinent and idle fancies he would feign a mirth, yet it is easy seen somewhat is here, the which he dares not let his face make show of.
Long want of loss hath made it chill and blunt. See, Milichus, this weapon better edged.
Sharpening of swords. When must we then have blows? Or means my master Cato-like to exempt himself from power of fates, and cloyed with life give the gods back their unregarded gift? But he hath neither Cato's mind nor cause, a man given over to pleasures and soft ease, which makes me still to doubt how in affairs of princes he dares meddle or desires.
We shall have blows of both sides, Milichus. Provide me store of clothes to bind up wounds, and what and be hard, more hard. Death is the worst. The gods sure keep it, hide it from us that live. How sweet death is, because we should go on and be their balls. There are about the house some stones that will staunch blood. See them set up. This world, I see, hath no felicity. I'll try the other.
Nero's life is soft, the sword's prepared against another's breast, the help for his. It can be no private foe, for then 'twere best to make it known and call his troops of bond and freedmen to his aid. Besides, his counselors, Seneca and Lucan, are no managers of quarrels.
Methinks I see him struggling on the ground. Here is unmanly outcries and lost prayers made to the gods, which turn their heads away. Nero, this day must end the world's desires, and headlong send thee to unquenched fires.
And exit Scaevinus.
Why do I further idly stand debating? My proofs are but too many, and too pregnant, and princes' ears still to suspicions open. Whoever, being but accused, was quit, for states are wise and cut off ills that may be. Mean men must die that t'other may sleep sound, chiefly that rule whose weakness apt to fears and bad deserts of all men makes them know it. There's none but is in heart what he's accused.
And exit. This is a really interesting scene. I'm really interested in this whole thing that you've got a master who's sort of talking out loud to his servant who's just standing there, but the servant is just talking to the audience. That I really like that. I really find that a really interesting dynamic, because you've got, as I say, the master who is just assuming that his servant's listening to every word, and yes, sure he is, and he's able to have this conversation about one thing, and Milichus is having this sort of moral debate. I mean, there's an interesting question about how moral this moral debate is with the audience, and. It's an interesting parallel to the earlier scene where that felt maybe slightly more awkward in terms of, because he's not really overhearing what someone is saying, whereas here, he is sort of listening to what his master's saying, and other things are going on. This play is doing some really interesting effects. It's really playing around with what you do on the stage in really interesting ways. This is really I'm really liking what this play is doing. Thoughts from the room? How effective did you find this sequence? Thoughts. Aliki first, and then Lynn.
We really enjoyed the previous iteration of this scene, where it was several conspirators and Milichus, or whatever his name is, was listening to them and commenting out to the audience. And this feels like an even more pared down and punchy version of that. I really enjoyed it.
Milichus. Lynn.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Milichus just to be different. But yeah, I was thinking that seems to be his function so far, is to comment on what's going on for the sake of for the benefit of the audience. So this might be a little hard to interpret if we hadn't had the previous scene where that was what that this character was doing. So I think that kind of prepares us for that. He's in the same room with Scaevinus. Again, we don't know how to pronounce his name. But he's not talking to him. But we kind of had that convention introduced earlier, so it's easier to interpret. But yeah, what an interesting device, having this Milichus character who's like, this is interesting. Not talking to the other people on stage. He's talking to himself. He's talking to us.
Yeah, and so the status difference as well, because he's a freedman. He's, he is the servant. Just the way that Scaevinus is sort of treating him in the room has a sort of interesting function. Any other thoughts, Lois?
Well, just that final speech, I can't work out the structure or the meaning of it in a way. I think it's particularly that there's none but is in heart what he's accused.
Yeah, I think it possibly ends at the end of that line. It doesn't run on, but I'm not sure about that. There are a couple of little minor questions I've got about that, but
yeah, I don't know. I just found that really difficult to figure out what he's saying there. I mean, obviously he. I take it he's talking himself into going and betraying the whole conspiracy, but but exactly what he's saying. I mean, he's saying that princes, obviously, if they know that everybody hates them, are likely to believe anything about a conspiracy anyway, which makes sense. But I still don't really get it. And princes' ears still to suspicions open. That's fine. But then whoever being but accused was quit.
I've got it down as a question mark here, so which might work a bit better. Anyway, that's question mark on some of that. Let's dive into Act 4 and see where we are with Nero. Delightful Nero, such a genuine, down to earth guy. Act 4, Scene 1. Enter Nero, Poppaea, Nymphidus, Tigellinus, Neophilus, and Epaphroditus.
This kiss, sweet love, I'll force from thee, and this. And of such spoils and victories be prouder than if I had the fierce Pannonian or grey-eyed German 10 times overcome. Let Julius go and fight at the end of the world and conquer from the wild inhabitants their cold and poverty, whilst Nero here makes other wars where the conquered gains, where to o'ercome is to be prisoner. Oh, willingly I give my freedom up and put on my own chains and am in love with my captivity. Such Venus is when on the sand shore of Xanthus or on Ida's pleasant green she leads the dance. Her nymphs all are we, and smiling graces do accompany. If Bacchus could his straggling minion grace with a glorious wreath of shining stars, why should not heaven my Poppaea crown? The northern team shall move into a round, new constellations rise to honor thee. The earth shall woo thy favors, and the sea lay his rich shells and treasure at thy feet. For thee Hidapus shall throw up his gold, Paucaia breathe the rich, delightful smells, the Ceres and the feathered man of Ind shall their fine arts and curious labors bring, and where the sun's not known, Poppaea's name shall mince their feast, and barbarous pomp be sung.
Now I am worthy to be queen of the world, fairer than Venus or the Bacchus love. But you'll anon until your cut boy, Sporus, your new wedded woman, to whom, now I hear, you are wedded to.
I wedded?
Aye, you, wedded. Did you not hear the words, the auspices? Was not the boy in bride-like garments dressed? Marriage book sealed, as swere for issue, to be had between you, solemn feast prepared, while all the court, which God give you joy, sounds, that have been good to Milichus your father, had ne'er another wife.
You forward fool, you're still so bitter. Who's that?
Enter Milichus to them.
Nymph, one that it seems my lord doth come in haste.
Yet in his face he sends his tale before him. Bad news, thou tellest.
'Tis bad, I tell, but good that I can tell it. Therefore your majesty will pardon me if I offend your ears to save your life.
Why is my life endangered? How ends this circumstance? Thou rack'st my thoughts.
My lord, your life is conspired against.
By whom?
It must be of the world excused in this, if the great duty to your majesty makes me all other lesser to neglect.
Thou'rt a tedious fellow. Speak, by whom?
By my master,
Who's thy master?
Scaevinus.
Scaevinus? Why should he conspire? Unless he thinks that likeness and conditions may make him worthy of the empire thought.
Who else are in it?
I think Natalis, Subius, Flavius, Lucan, Seneca, and Lucius Piso, Asper, and Quintilianus.
Ha done. Thou'lt reckon all Rome anon. So thou mayest. They're villains all, I'll not trust one of them. Oh, that the Romans had all but one neck.
Piso's creeping into men's affections, and popular arts have given a long course of doubt. And t'others late observed discontents, risen from misinterpreted disgraces, may make us credit this relation.
Where are they? Come they not upon us yet? See the guard doubled, see the gates shut up. Why, they'll surprise us in our court anon.
Not so, my lord. They are at Piso's house, and think themselves yet safe and undescried.
Let's hither then, and take them in this false security.
'Twere better first publish them traitors.
That were to make them so, and force them all upon their enemies. Now, without stir or hazard, they'll be taken, and boldly try all dare the law demand. Besides, the accusation may be forged by malice or mistaking.
What likes you do, Nymphidus, out of hand? 2 ways distract when either would prevail. If they, suspecting but this fellow's absence, should try the city and attempt their friends, how dangerous might Piso's favour be?
I to himself would make the matter clear, which now upon one servant's credit stands. The city's favour keeps within the bounds of profit. They'll love none to hurt themselves. Honour and friendship they'll hear others name. Themselves do neither feel nor know the same. To put them yet, though needless, in some fear, we'll keep the streets with armed companies. Then, if they stir, they see their wives and houses prepare a prey to the greedy soldier.
Let's be quick then. You to Piso's house, while I and Tigellinus further sift this fellow's knowledge.
And in 3 lines' time, they will all exit, leaving Nero on stage.
Look to the gates and walls of the city. Look, the river be well kept. Have watches set in every passage and in every way. Who shall watch these watches? What if they begin and play the traitors first? Oh, where shall I seek faith, or them that I may wisely trust? The city favors the conspirators, the Senate in disgrace, and fear hath lined the camp. Why, most are soldiers that he named. Besides, he knows not all. Like a fool, I interrupted him. If he had named those that stood by me. Oh, security, which we so much seek after, yet are still to courts a stranger, and dost rather choose the smoky reeds and sedgy cottages than the proud roofs and wanton cost of kings. Oh, sweet despised joys of poverty, a happiness unknown unto the gods. Would I had rather in poor Gallage been, or Bluebrae, a ragged magistrate, sat as a judge of measures and of corn, than the adored monarch of the world. Mother, thou didst deservedly in this, that from a private and sure state didst raise my fortunes to this slippery hill of greatness, where I can neither stand nor fall with life.
And exit Nero, having randomly called on the mother who he murdered. Nero's mental state is not good. I mean, he's got a reason to be paranoid. He's just been told that people are trying to kill him. And it's interesting who are being named here as part of this conspiracy and how that all functions. And I say, this building up of paranoia in Nero, I mean, he has just set fire to the city. And primarily to just kill a lot of people. And he's quite pleased that he killed people. So, yeah, Lynn.
Yeah, this is interesting because it's an iteration of a cliche. Oh, it's so hard and stressful to be a head of state. It's so dangerous. You never, the sort of Damocles kind of thing. It's actually better to be poor because then you don't have to worry about people killing you, and that's conventional. And we sometimes, as an audience, have a certain amount of compassion for that argument. And here it's just like, dude, you brought it on yourself. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of work and very dangerous to be a head of state, but come on. This whole is everybody's fault, but mine here is ringing really hollow. And that's my reaction. I wonder if that's the intended reaction.
Yeah, and
he's invoking this cliche, and we're like, no, dude, that does not apply here.
Yeah, and it's also, he's asking the question, who can he trust? Who shall watch these watches? Which, again, is being used in a slightly different context to the kind of the way we discuss it normally. So it's really interesting how he's twisting perfectly reasonable things, which in this context just go, no, this does not really apply to you, Aliki.
Yeah, I think we're very much intended to have that reaction, partly because of what you said, the who watches the watchers, partly because his idea of dire poverty is to be a magistrate in a rural town, which, is probably fine, actually, by most people's standards, if not prosperous. And then bringing up his mother, who we've already been told pretty much by him he murdered. Yeah.
Oh, he's not just told that he murdered. He enacts on stage as sort of this weird Freudian expurgation. I mean, it's so twisted, actually, but it's so subtly drawn. I mean, we actually, it's not like they're hammering us over the head with it. It just pops out every so often, like he just can't help himself. That said, I wouldn't be surprised if he opens a door at the back of the stage and she's there in a sort of Bates Motel fashion. Lynn.
Yeah. You start to get the feeling that Nero distinguishes poorly between reality and fantasy. I want to go back to the beginning of the scene, because the playwright here, whoever that was, really doesn't care about the facts. He really just wants to draw Nero as the worst possible kind of human, by the standards of the day, when this was written, because it is evidently true that at one point later in his life, Nero met a young man, a boy, who reminded him of Poppaea, and he had the young man castrated and dressed in Poppaea's garments. This was after Poppaea was dead, though, because he missed her so much. He was so obsessively in love with her. He found someone who reminded him of her and basically had this young man cosplay Poppaea. So it's not, they weren't alive at the same time, but the playwright's ignoring that fact to make him that much more degenerate.
Yes, the sort of conflating of things into different dramatic shapes. We do need to move on, sadly, but I'll go to Eric, who's just popped into the room. Welcome, Eric. You have thoughts?
Yeah, no, I was just, because you were talking about like sort of the mother appearing like a Bates Motel type scenario. That made me think of like the Tragedy of Hoffman, where you've got like all that stuff about sort of the body of the father, and in full view as well. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's meant to be in the same vein.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a severed head earlier, so it's time for Helen to get the head in the bag out for that scene. So that's a call back about two years ago of videos, 3 maybe 4, years. Go back. There's a head in the bag in one of the videos. It's a second look. It was quite fun. Anyway, Nothing as fun as a severed head, eh? We're going to run a couple of scenes back to back. Act 4, Scene 2. Enter Piso, Lucan, Scaevinus, and Flavius.
But since we are discovered, what remains but put our lives upon our hands? These swords shall try us traitors or true citizens.
And what should make this hazard a doubt success? Stout men are oft with sudden onsets daunted. What shall this stage player be?
It is not now Augustus' gravity nor Tiberius' craft, but Tigellinus and Chrysogoras, eunuchs and women that we go against.
This is for thine own sake. This is for ours, we beg, that thou wilt suffer him to be overcome. Why shouldst thou keep so many vowed swords from such a hated throat?
Or shall we fear donuts on me? I beg your pardon.
Where are we?
Flavius, or shall we fear?
Or shall we fear to trust unto the gods so good a cause?
By this we may ourselves in heaven favor promise, because all noblest and worth on earth we seize on our side. Here's the Fabi's son, here the Coruini are, and take that part their noble fathers would, if now they lived. There's not a soul that claims nobility either by his or his forefathers' merit, but is with us, the gallant youth whom past the dangers or hot blood makes bold. Staid men suspect their wisdom or their faith, to whom our counsels we have not revealed. And while our party seeking to disgrace, they traitors call us, each man treason praiseth, and hateth faith when Piso is a traitor.
And that adventure by what stoutness can befall us worse than will by cowardice? If both the people and the soldier failed us, yet shall we die at least worthy ourselves, worthy our ancestors? O Piso, think on that day when in the Parthian fields thou criedest to the flying legions to turn and look death in the face. He was not grim, but fair and lovely when he came in arms. Oh, why there died we not on Syrian swords? Were we reserved to prisons and to chains? Behold the galleass in every street, and even now they come to clap on irons. Must Piso's head be showed upon a pole? Those members torn, rather than Roman-like and Piso-like, with weapons in our hands, fighting in throng of enemies to die. That it shall not be a civil war, Nero prevents, whose cruelty hath left few citizens. We are not Romans now, Moors and Jews and utmost Spaniards, Asiatics' refuge that do fill the city.
Part of us are already taken, the rest amazed and seeking holes. Our hidden ends you see laid open, court and city armed, and for fear joining to the part they fear. Why should we move desperate and hopeless arms and vainly spill that noble blood that should crystal rubies and Median fields, not Tiber, color? And the more your show be your loves and readiness to lose your lives, the loather I am to adventure them. Yet I am proud you would for me have died, but live and keep yourselves to worthier ends. No mother but my own shall weep my death, nor will I make by overthrowing us heaven guilty of more faults. Yet from the hopes your own good wishes, rather than the thing, do make you see this comfort I receive of death unforced. O friends, I would not die when I can live no longer. 'Tis my glory that free and willing I give up this breath, leaving such courages as yours untried. But to be long in talk of dying would show a relenting and a doubtful mind. By this you shall my quiet thoughts intend. I blame nor earth nor heaven for my end.
And he dies.
Oh, that this noble courage had been shown rather on enemies' breasts than on thy own.
But sacred and inviolate be thy will, and let it lead and teach us. This sword I could more willingly have thrust through Nero's breast. That fortune denied me. It shall now through Scaevinus.
And in theory, they may all exit there, and we go into what might be a separate scene. Enter Tigellinus for what we might call scene 3.
But multitudes of villains are here gotten in a conspiracy, which Hydra-like, still in the cutting off, increaseth more. The more we take, the more are still impeached, and every man brings in new company. I wonder what we shall do with them all. The prisons cannot hold more than they have. The jails are full, the holes with gallants stink. Straw and gold lace together live, I think. 'Twere best even shut the gates of the city up and make it all one jail. For this I'm sure, there's not an honest man within the walls. And though the guilty doth exceed the free, yet through a base and fatal cowardice they all assist in taking one another, and by their own hands are to prison led. There's no condition nor degree of men but here are met, men of the sword and gown, plebeians, senators, and women too, ladies that might have slain him with their eye, would use their hands, philosophers and politicians. Politicians? Their plot was laid too short. Poets would now not only write, but be the arguments of tragedies. The emperor is much pleased, but some have named Seneca, and I will have Patronius, on promise of pardon or fear of torture, will accusers find.
Exit, going into Act 4, Scene 3 or 4, depending on your point of view. Enter Nymphidus, Lucan, and Scaevinus with guard.
Though Piso's suddenness and guilty hand prevented half the death he should have had, yet you abide it must.
Oh, may the earth lie lightly on his course. Sprinkle his ashes with your flowers and tears. The love and dainties of mankind is gone.
If only now we can, we'll follow thee. That way thou lead us, and wait on thee in death, which we had done, had not these hindered us.
Nay, other ends your grievous crimes await, each nth which the law and which the law and your deserts exact.
What have we deserved?
That punishment which traitors unto princes and enemies of the state they live in merit.
If by the state, this government, you mean, I justly am an enemy unto it. That's but Nero, you, and Tigellinus, that glorious world that even beguiles the wise, being looked into, includes but 3 or 4 corrupted men, which, were they all removed, 'twould for the common state much better be.
Sorry. Why, what can you in the government mislike? Unless it grieves you that the world's in peace, and that our arms conquer without blood. Hath not his power, with the foreign visitations and strangers' honor, more acknowledged been than any was afore him? Hath not he disposed of frontier kingdoms with success, given away crowns whom he set up prevailing? The rival seat of the Arsacidae, though that thought their brightness equal unto ours, is it crowned by him doth reign? If we have any war, it's beyond Rheims and Euphrates, and such whose different chances have rather served for pleasure and discourse than troubled us. At home, the city hath increased in wealth, with building been adorned, sorry. The arts have flourished, and the muses sung, and that his justice and well-tempered reign hath the best judges pleased, the powers divine, their blessings, and so long prosperity of the empire under him, enough declare.
You freed the state from wars abroad, but 'twas to spoil at home more safely, and divert the Parthian enemy and enmity on us. And yet the glory rather of the spoils of war have wanting been. The loss and charge we have, your peace is full of cruelty and wrong. Laws taught to speak to present purposes, wealth and fair houses dangerous faults become. Much blood in the city, and no common deaths, but gentlemen and consulary houses. On Caesar's own house looked, that hath been free. Hath he not shed the blood he calls divine? Hath not that nearness which he should love beget, always on him been the cause of hate and fear? Virtue and power suspected and kept down? They, whose great ancestors this empire made, distrusted in the government thereof. A happy state where Decius is a traitor, Narcissus is true, only wast unsafe to offend the prince. His freedmen worse than were feared, whose wrongs with such insulting pride were heard. But even the faulty it made innocent. If we complained, that was itself a crime. Aye, though it was Caesar's benefit, our writings pried into false guiltiness, thinking each taxing pointing out itself. Our private whisperings listened after. Nay, our thoughts were forced out of us and punished. And had it been in you to have taken away our understanding as you did our speech, you would have made us thought this honest too.
Can malice narrow eyes see anything yet more it can traduce?
His long-continued taxes I forbear, in which he chiefly showed him to be a prince. His robbing altars, safe of a sale of holy things, the antique goblets of adored rust, sacred gifts of kings and people sold, nor was the spill more odious than the use they were employed on, spent on shame and lust, which still to have been so endless in their change, and made us know diverse servitude, but that he hath been suffered so long and prospered, as you say, for that to thee, O heaven, I turn myself and cry, no God hath care of us, yet have we our revenge, as much as earth may be revenged on heaven. Their divine honour Nero shall usurp, and prayers and feasts and adoration have, as well as Jupiter.
Away, blaspheming tongue, be ever silent for thy bitterness.
And they exit. So we have all these people. They sew them up really quite quickly. I say quite quickly. They speak at great length while their conspiracy is being sewn up quite quickly. I was saying in the chat, and various commentators said in the chat that I like the shape of this. I just think there's an awful lot of long speeches that actually go on a little too long for this, because this is brutal police state coming in, taking people away, people in hiding, killing themselves rather than be captured. I don't think it's the time for long speeches. That time has passed. But that said, that's what blue pencils are for. And having too much is better than having too little. So I don't have a massive problem with that. I think we can trim that back quite nicely. I really like Tigellinus' little interjection there, and I almost feel that actually we can intercut some bits of these scenes, even a bit with Nero's speech at the end of the previous sequence as well, so that there's a sense of all these things happening at the same time. Because I just love the way Tigellinus comes on. God, the prisons are full. What are we going to do with all these I mean, we just don't have the room. There isn't room in the budget for this. The logistics of tyranny, and I think that's really nice. And I say, if there's more of an overlap with that and all of these other elements, then I think that would have that. It's also that there's a couple of problematic lines thrown in there as well. Alan, then Lynn.
Yeah, I mean, what struck me yesterday, it moved at a reasonable pace. The speeches were reasonably short, with the exception of Nero, who I think almost as a character definition spoke at length and not always to purpose. But today's session, we do seem to have had these huge, great chunks of, well, I need a good death speech, otherwise I'm not turning up to work next week.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think the groundwork was laid because the people who are speaking at great length were the ones in the slower scenes in the first half. They didn't speak at as much length because they spoke to each other more. But they did still speak at some length. And I felt I had some issue with some of those scenes in the first half as well. So it's like they're not going to be on for much longer. So they've really got to fill out that stuff there. But again, blue pencil. I think we can get the meat out of this without going on too long about it. I don't really care about Scaevinus's final thoughts. I do care a bit about Piso getting a final death speech. But I'm not so sure about Scaevinus. But I could be wrong. That might be something to play around with. Lynn.
Yeah, I think your point about momentum really sums it up, that this is not the place to slow down and get talky. So, I mean, the play is obviously concerned that we know really who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. We really need to make that clear. And Nero's the bad guy, and the people who are going to kill him, they're the good guys. And they're noble and all of that. But you don't have to give them a page-long speech of peace. Make that clear. And then the scene after that, this is such a weird place to put a debate about whether Nero was a good emperor or not. Nymphidus defending him, and you think maybe disingenuously because Nymphidus has been plotting against him since the beginning. Well, like, we're at peace and the arts are flourishing and look at all this prosperity we have. Like, how seriously are we supposed to take that? Like, what is this scene trying to do in the overall shape of the play? It just feels very odd.
Yeah. So an element that might need some trimming, but again, maybe just play around with and see whether actually it functions in performance. This is one for doing it at a pace where we're getting an idea of those things. We need to move on. Act 4, Scene 4. We're going back to the royal court. Enter Nero, Poppaea, Tigellinus, Flavius, Neophilus, Epaphroditus, and a young man.
What could cause thee, forgetful of my benefits and thy oath, to seek my life?
Nero, I hated thee. Now was there any of thy soldiers more faithful, while thou faith deservest, than I? Together did I leave to be a subject, and thou a prince. Caesar was now become a player on the stage, a wagoner, a burner of houses and of us, a parricide of wife and mother.
Villain, dost know where and of whom thou speakst?
Have you but one death for him? Let it be a feeling one. Tigellinus, be at thy charge, and let me see thee witty in it.
Come, Sarah, we'll see how stoutly you'll stretch out your neck.
Would thou durst strike as stoutly?
Exit Tigellinus and Flavius showing us how to show somebody's final scene in a much more concise fashion. Anyway, carry on.
And what's he there?
One that in whispering overheard what pity 'twas, my lord, that Piso died.
And why was't pity, sirrah, that Piso died?
My lord, 'twas pity he deserved to die.
Much this youth my Otho does resemble. Otho, my first, my best love, who is now, under pretext of governing, exiled to Lusitania, or honourably banished.
Well, if you be so passionate, I'll make you spend your pity on your prince and good men, not on traitors.
The gods forbid my prince should pity need. Somewhat the sad remembrance did me stir of the frail and weak condition of our kind, somewhat his greatness than whom yesterday the world but Caesar could show nothing higher. Besides, some virtues and some worth he had that might excuse my pity to an end so cruel and unripe.
I know it is not how this stranger moves my mind. His face, methinks, is not like other men's, nor do they speak thus. Oh, his words invade my weakened senses and overcome my heart.
Your pity shows your favor and your willing which side you are inclined to, had you power. You can but pity, else should Caesar fear. Your ill affection then shall punished be. Take him to execution, he shall die, that the death pities of mine enemy.
This benefit at least sad death shall give, to free me from the powers of such a government. And if I die for pitying human chance and Piso's end, there will be some too that will pity more.
Oh, what a dauntless look! What sparkling eyes, threatening in suffering! Sure, some noble blood is hid in rags. Fear argues a base spirit. In him, what courage and contempt of death! And shall I suffer one I love to die? He shall not die! Hands off this man, away! Nero, thou shalt not kill this guiltless man.
He guiltless? Strumpet!
Spurns her and Poppaea falls.
She's in love with the smooth face of the boy.
Alas, my lord, you have slain her.
Help! She dies!
Poppaea, speak. I am not angry. I did not mean to hurt thee. Speak, sweet love.
She's dead, my lord.
Fetch her again. She shall not die. I'll open the iron gates of hell and break the imprisoned shadows of the deep and force from death this far too worthy prey. She's not dead. The crimson red that like the morning shone when from her windows, oh, with roses strewed, she peeped forth, forsakes not yet her cheeks. Her breath, that like a honeysuckle smelt, twining about the prickling eglantine, yet moves her lips. Those quick and piercing eyes that did in beauty challenge heaven's eyes, yet shine as they were wont. Oh no, they do not. See how they grow obscure. Oh, see, they close, and cease to take or give light to the world. What stars soe'er you are assured to grace the firmament, for lo, the twinkling fires together throng, and that clear milky space of storms and Pleiades and thunder void prepares your room. Do not with wry aspect look on your Nero, who in blood shall mourn your luckless fate, and many a breathing soul send after you to wait upon their queen. This shall begin, the rest shall follow after, and fill the streets with outcries and with slaughter.
Sorry, I was enjoying that. End of C. I say enjoying that. I mean, it's not obviously a cheerful thing there. But yeah, Nero. So Poppaea mostly speaking in asides, but then stepping forward. We got Flavius's final moment and an appeal for improvisation. Make it a good death, make it a funny death, make it interesting, entertain me with death. And then I say Nero calling on, saying, I can come back from. I have the power to bring you back from death. And no, you really don't, mate. You really don't. Alan.
I think you could also get some fun out of Nymphidus' reaction, thinking, hold on a minute, she's about to trade me in for a younger model.
Eric, were you waving?
I was just going to say, it's kind of, because I was writing in the chat there, it was a bit like Periander, where he just knocks her downstairs and we have no idea how she dies, but then he tries to resurrect her through very unorthodox means.
Yes,
which is not in this.
Yeah, let's not go there. That was weird. That was not good.
But
that was not
yeah,
good.
it's kind of. This is an interesting play.
Yes, I mean, the fundamental difference with Periander is at the very beginning of the play, someone comes on and does what's just happened here with no context at all. Whereas here, we are in Act 4, so it's there is a sense. I mean, Poppaea as a character hasn't exactly gone anywhere. It has been we discussed this last time, and sadly, we didn't get more of that. But something did occur. Lynn, you're muted at present.
Yeah, Alan mentioned that Nymphidus could have an interesting silent moment when he sees his girlfriend, his mistress, eyeing this young man. But then, of course, Poppaea is murdered, and then Nymphidius has another moment. Like, well, shit, there's my means of influence over the emperor. She's gone. Like, that's yeah, oops. And just like goes further and further off the rails. Oh, I didn't mean to kill you. I'm not angry anymore. And then in the end, it's like, oh, this is so nuts. Your luckless fate. Like, what, dude, you killed her. Like, it just happened, her luckless fate. And then I'm gonna like kill a bunch of people to be your attendants in the afterlife. Ooh, yeah, he's crazy.
Yeah, and he's quite random though. The Poppaea suddenly goes, "Oh, my Otho doth resemble." Have we heard of Otho earlier in this text? I feel that that such a motivation requires an Otho's gun earlier in the script, so that we feel that doesn't come quite so from left field as it does. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, sadly, I'll quickly go to Lois and Alan, but then we need to move on.
Well, just to pick up your last point, I think someone does say earlier that she's had other lovers. I can't remember if they mentioned them by name, but she has had a history, quite a history before Nero.
Alan.
Yeah, you could almost see in her bedroom setting, you could have a row of portraits.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to dive into a couple of scenes to complete the act. Act 4, Scene 5. Enter Seneca with two of his friends.
What means your mourning? This ungrateful sorrow? What are your precepts of philosophy? Where are prepared resolutions so many years forestudied against danger? To whom is Nero's cruelty unknown? Or what remained after mother's blood? But his instructor's death, leave these tears. Death from me nothing takes, but what's a burden? A clog to that free spark of heavenly fire, but that in Seneca, the which you loved, which you admired, doth and shall still remain secure of death, untouched of the grave.
Will not belie our tears. We wail not thee. It is ourselves that in our own loss we grieve. To thee, what loss in such a change can be? Virtue is paid her due by death alone. To our own losses do we give these tears, that lose thy love, thy boundless knowledge lose the unpatterned sample of thy virtue, lose whatsoever may praise or sorrow move. In all these glosses, yet of this we glory, that 'tis thy happiness that makes us sorry.
If there be any place for ghosts of good men, if, as we have been long taught, great men's souls consume not with their bodies, thou shalt see, looking from thy dwellings of the air, true duties thy memory performed, not in the outward pomp of funeral, but in remembrance of thy deeds and words, the oft recalling of thy many virtues. The tomb that shall the eternal relics keep of Seneca shall be his hearers' hearts.
Be not afraid, my soul. Go cheerfully to thy own heaven, from whence it first let down. Thou, loath by this imprisoning flesh, putst on, no lifted up, thou ravished shall behold the truth of things, at which we wonder here, and foolishly do wrangle on beneath. Like a god shall walk the spacious air, and see what even to conceit's denied. Great soul of the world, that through the parts diffused of this vast all, guidest what thou dost inform, you blessed minds that from the spheres you move, look on men's actions not with idle eyes, and gods we go to, aid me in this strife and combat of my flesh, that ending I may still show Seneca and myself die.
And they exeunt. Act 4, Scene 6. Enter Antonius, who we haven't seen in ages, and Enanthe, who we've never met.
Sure, this message of the princes, so grievous and unlooked for, will appall Patronius much.
Will not death any man?
It will, but him so much the more, that having lived to his pleasure shall forego so delicate a life. I do not marvel that Seneca and such sour fellows can leave that they never tasted, but when we that have the nectar of thy kisses felt, that drinks away the troubles of this life, and but one banquet make of 40 years must come to leave this. But soft, here he is.
Enter Patronius and a centurion.
Leave me a while, centurion, to my friends. Let me my farewell take, and thou shalt see Nero's commandment quickly observed in me.
Exeunt centurion.
Come, let us drink and dash the posts with wine. Here, throw your flowers, fill me a swelling bowl, such as Maecenas or my Lucan drank on Virgil's birthday.
What means, Patronius, this unreasonable and causeless mirth? Why, came not from the prince this man to you a messenger of death?
Here, fair Enanthe, whose plump ruddy cheek exceeds the grape, he makes this. Here, my girl.
He drinks.
And think'st thou death a matter of such harm? Why, he must have this pretty dimpling chin, and will peck out those eyes now so wound.
Why, is it not the extremest of all ills?
It is indeed the last and end of ills. The gods before 'twould let us taste God's death's joys, placed us in the toil and sorrows of this world, because we should receive the amends and thank them. Death, the grim knave that leads you to the door, where entered once all curious pleasures come to meet and welcome you. A troop of beauteous ladies from whose eyes love 1,000 arrows, 1,000 graces shoots, puts forth their fair hands to you and invite to their green arbours and close-shadowed walls, whence banished is the roughness of her years. Only the west wind blows in ever spring and ever summer. There the laden boughs offer their tempting burdens to your hand. Doubtful your eyes, or taste inviting more. There every man his own desires enjoys. Fair Lucrece by lusty Tarquin's side, and woos him now again to ravish her. Not us, no Roman, Laius will refuse. To Corinth any man may go, no mask, no envious garment do those beauties hide, which nature made, so moving to be spied, but in bright crystal, which doth supply all, and white transparent veils they are attired, through which the pure snow underneath doth shine. Can it be snow, from whence such flames arise? Mingled with that fair company shall we, on banks of violets and of hyacinths, of love's devising, sit and gently sport, and all the while melodious music hear, and poets' songs that music far exceed, the old Achaean crowned with smiling flowers, amorous Sappho on her lesbian lute, beauty's sweet scars and Cupid's godheads sing.
What? Be not ravished with thy fancies, do not court nothing, nor make love unto our fears.
It's nothing that I say.
But empty words.
Why, thou requirest some instance of the eye. Will thou go with me then and see that world, which either will return thy old delights, or square thy appetite anew to theirs?
Nay, I had far rather believe thee here. Others' ambition such discoveries seek faith. I am satisfied with the base delights of common men. A wench, a house I have, and of my own a garden. I'll not change for all your walks and ladies and rare fruits.
Your pleasures must of force resign to these. In vain you shunned the sword, in vain the sea. In vain is Nero feared or flattered. Hither you must, and leave your purchased houses, your new-made garden, your black-browed wife, and of the trees thou hast so quaintly set, not one, but the displeasant cypress shall go with thee.
Faith, 'tis true, we must at length. But yet, Patronius, while we may a while, we would enjoy them. Those we have, we are sure of. when that thou talkest of's doubtful and come.
Perhaps thou think'st to live yet 20 years, which may, unlooked for, be cut off as mine. If not, to endless time compared is nothing. What you endure must ever endure now, not stay, not to be the last at table set. Each best day of our life that first doth go, to them succeeds diseased age and woe. Now die your pleasures, and the days your prayer, your rhymes and loves and jests will take away. Therefore, my sweet, yet thou wilt go with me, and not live here to what thou wouldst not see.
Would you have me then kill myself, and die, and go I know not to what place there?
What places dost thou fear? The favoured lake, they tell me, thou must pass, and thy black frogs that croak about the brim.
Oh, pardon, sir, though death affrights a woman, whose pleasures, though you timely here divine, the pains we know and see.
The pain is life's. Death rids that pain away. Come boldly. There's no danger in this ford. Children pass through it. If it be a pain, you have this comfort, that you past it are.
Yet all, as well as I, do loathe to die.
Judge them by deed. You see them do it to pace.
Aye, but 'tis loathly and against their wills.
Yet know not you that any being dead repent them, and would have lived again. Then their errors saw, and foolish prayers. But you are blinded in the love of life. Death is but sweet to them that do approach it. To me, as one that, taken with Delphic rage, when the divining God his breast doth fill, he sees what others cannot, standing by. It seems a beauteous and a pleasant thing. Where is my death's physician?
Enter, physician.
Here, my lord.
Art ready?
Aye, my lord.
And I for thee. Nero, my end shall mock thy tyranny.
And exeunt. I'll go straight to Aliki.
So we had some talk before about there being perhaps too much in the way of death speeches, but this has now turned into the death play about death. We've had all kinds of different approaches to how to meet the end and how to observe it after having caused it. And I think that's quite interesting, actually, although it might get to be a bit much.
Yeah, I mean, we've just read two scenes in a row, and before that we read two scenes in a row with a sort of Nero sandwich to keep it ticking along. But once again, the play has stopped dead for with characters who we haven't seen in ages and who we didn't really like when they were here the first time around. So it's really interesting. Lois?
Well, if the audience for this play had read Patronius and read Tacitus, they would certainly know about Patronius, and they would know one of the best bits of Tacitus is the bit about Petronius's death. I mean, he got this sort of letter from Nero telling him to commit suicide. He invited all his friends to a banquet. He entertained everybody with light verse and music, and then he recited a long poem satirizing Nero, knowing that he couldn't be punished for it because he was about to die, and then he died.
Sadly, we don't quite get that here. Leaky.
No, but I mean, we do get some of it. We get some of the sense of what he's about with it. And also, you said it was sandwiched with Nero, but the Nero is also a death scene. It's Poppaea's death, and Nero going, "She's not dead. Oh no, she's dead. Let's kill everybody." So I mean, it's been 5 scenes in a row of how do Romans deal with death.
Yeah, Lois again.
Yeah, well, the other thing is there is a lot of translation going on here. I mean, that whole passage about death and what you can't take with you and the only thing that will go with you. I mean, I remember that. I read some version of that in Latin 101. I think it might have been a Horace ode, but I'm not sure.
Okay, well, I'm not going to say we're going to leave the death act because I suspect there's going to be some more as we go into Act 5 with slight switch around. Epaphroditus will be read by Eric for this scene onwards. Act 5, Scene 1, enter Nero, Nymphidus, Tigellinus, Neophilus, Epaphroditus, and other attendants.
Enough is wept, Poppaea, for thy death. Enough is bled. So many tears of others wailing their losses have swept mine away. Who in the common funeral of the world can mourn one death?
Besides, your majesty, this benefit and their deserved punishment shall reap from all attempts hereafter to be freed. Conspiracy is now forever dashed, tumult suppressed, rebellion out of heart. In Piso's death, danger itself did die.
Nymphidus, you are muted.
Piso, that thought to climb by bowing down, by giving away to thrive, and raising others to become great himself, hath now by death given quiet to your thoughts, and fear to theirs that shall by treason their advancement plot. Those dangerous heads that his ambition leaned on, and they by it crept up, and from their meanness thought in this stir to rise aloft, are off. Now peace and safety wait upon your throne, security hath walled your seat about, there is no place for fear left.
Why, I never feared them.
That was your fault. Your majesty must give us leave to blame your dangerous courage, and that noble soul too prodigal of itself.
A prince's mind knows neither fear nor hope. The beams of royal majesty are such as all eyes are with it amazed and weakened, but it with nothing. I at first contemned their weak devices and faint enterprise. Why, thought they against him to have prevailed, whose childhood was from Messalinus spied by dragons that the earth gave up preserved. Such guard my cradle had, for fate had then pointed me out to be what now I am. Should all the legions and the provinces in one, united against me conspire, I could disperse them with one angry eye. My brow's a host of men. Come, Tigellinus, let's turn this bloody banquet, Piso meant us, unto a merry feast. We'll drink and challenge fortune. But who's that, Neophilus?
Enter a Roman.
Your courier from beyond the Alps, my lord.
News of some German victory, the like, or Greek overthrow?
The letters come from France.
Why smiles your majesty?
So I smile. I should be afraid there's one in arms, Nymphidus.
What, armed against your majesty?
Our lieutenant of the province, Julius Vindex.
Oh, that giddy Frenchman.
His province is disarmed, my lord. He hath no legion, not a soldier under him.
Won by that blood, and rapine would repair his state, consumed in vanities and lust.
Enter another Roman.
He would not find out 3 to follow him.
More news, my lord.
Is it of Vindex that thou hast to say?
Vindex is up, and with him France in arms. The noble men and people throng to the cause. Money and armour cities do confer. The country doth send in provision. Young men bring bodies, old men lead them forth. Ladies do coin their jewels into pay. The sickle now is framed into a sword, and drawing horses are to manage taut. France nothing doth but war and fury breathe.
All this fierce talk. But Vindex doth rebel, and I will hang him.
How long came you forth after the former messenger?
4 days, but by the benefit of sea and weather am arrived with him.
How strong was Vindex at your coming forth?
He was esteemed 100,000.
Man enough.
And soldiers few enough. Tumultuary troops, undisciplined, untrained in service, to waste victuals good, but when they come to look on war's black wounds, and but afar off see the face of death.
It falls out for my empty coffers well, the spoil of such a large and goodly province, enriched with trade, and long enjoyed peace.
What order will your majesty have taken for levying forces to suppress this stir?
What order should we take? We'll laugh and drink. Think'st thou it fit my pleasures be disturbed when any Frenchman list to break his neck? Thou not have heard of Piso's fortune yet? Let that talk fight with them.
What order needs? Your majesty shall find this French heat quickly of itself grow cold.
Come away, nothing shall come that this night's sport shall stay.
And Nero exits with many of his train, leaving Neophilus and Epaphroditus behind.
Wonder what makes him so confident in this revolt now grown unto a war, and ensigns in the field, when in the other, being but a plot of conspiracy, he showed himself so wretchedly dismayed.
Faith, the right nature of a coward to set light dangers that seemed far off. Piso was here, ready to enter at the presence door and drag him out of his abused chair, and then he trembled. Vindex is in France, and many woods and seas and hills in between.
'Twas strange that Piso was so soon suppressed.
Strange indeed, for had he but come up and taken the court in that affright and stir, while unresolved for whom or what to do, each on the other hand had jealousy, while his appalled majesty not yet had time to set the countenance, he would have hazarded the royal seat.
Nay, had it without hazard. All the court had for him been, and those disclosed their love and favour in the cause, which now to hide, colour their good meanings ready were, to show their forwardness against it most.
But for a stranger with a naked province, without allies or friends of the state, to challenge a prince upheld with 30 legions, rooted in 4 descents of ancestors, and 14 years continuance of reign, why it is...
And enter Nero, Nymphidus, and Tigellinus to them.
Galba and Spain? What, Spain? Galba too?
Exeunt Nero and Nymphidus.
I pray thee, Tigellinus, what fury is this? What strange event? What accident hath thus o'ercast your countenances?
Down we were set at table, and began with sparkling bowls to chase our fears away, and mirth and pleasure looked out of our eyes, when, lo, a breathless messenger comes in, and tells how Vindex and the powers of France have Sergius Galba chosen emperor, and what applause the legions him receive. The Spain's revolted, Portugal hath joined, and much suspected of in Germany. But Nero, not abiding out to the end, or through the tables dashed against the ground the cup which he so much, esteemed, teareth his hair, and with incensed rage curseth false men and gods, the lookers on.
His rage, we saw, was wild and desperate.
Oh, you unsecured wisdoms which do laugh at our security and fears alike, and plain to show our weakness and your power, make us condemn the harms which surest strike when you our glories and our pride undo. Our overthrow you make ridiculous too.
And they exit, and we're calling that the end of Act 5, Scene 1. So yeah, some bad. But it's interesting, yeah. So all of what we've been looking at earlier has been internal forces trying to take out the emperor, and the emperor has relatively effectively got rid of them all. And now we're looking at external forces in language which is much more like a sort of early modern history play than it is of all these Frenchmen, all those Frenchies coming over here. Rather than Gauls or that kind of logic, but it doesn't matter. It's fine. We get the basic idea. There's some external forces that are coming to get you. It's not going to go well, is it? Because you can't get rid of that army with a bit of good lyre playing. It's just not going to work. You can play your timbrel as much as you like. They're not going to stop. Any brief thoughts before we go into the final couple of scenes? Eric.
It's interesting that you sort of get this whole they don't know about Piso, so it must have been that Piso was very central to the whole conspiracy. Otherwise it's kind of, but it's like, how do they not know? Because it's strange that he was so soon suppressed, but they don't have news of him. What, I don't know, maybe this is me.
Other thoughts before we go forward? Aliki.
The form of that last scene was kind of fun, with Nero breezing in to go, oh, what, no, Spain too? And then just breezing off again, kind of like one of the centurions that was arriving earlier to deliver plot, or messengers.
Yeah, well, in that sense, you're going, Nero's not the one to deliver exposition. Let Tigellinus do it. He's much more, and it gives it a nice sense of urgency as well, and it makes the all of those things, and there's little things about how the messengers, one arrived with papers, but he actually left earlier, and the other one went by boat, and it's interesting logistics. I'm not sure how it's but it all builds this impression that everything's actually happening at the same time, rather than there's actually probably in real life there would have been quite a large gap between all of those things. Anyway, we must carry on, and we're going from Act 5, Scene 2. Enter Nymphidus.
Slow-making counsels and the sliding year have brought me to the long-foreseen destruction of this misled young man. His state is shaken, and I will push it on. Revolted France, nor the conquered provinces of Spain, nor his own guilt, shall like to me oppress him. I to his easy yielding ears proclaim new German mutinies, and all the world rousing itself in hate to Nero's name. I his distracted counsels do disperse with fresh despairs. I animate the Senate and the people to engage them past recall in prejudice of Nero, and in brief, perish he must. The fates and I resolve it, to which effect I presently will go, proclaim a donative in Galba's name.
Enter Antonius to him.
Yonder's Nymphidus, our commander now, with respect must speak, and smooth my brow. Captain, all hail.
Antonius, well met. Your place of tribune in this anarchy?
Anarchy, my lord. Is Nero dead?
This anarchy, this yet unstyled time, while Galba is unseized of the empire which Nero hath forsook.
Hath Nero then resigned the empire?
In effect he hath, for he's fled to Egypt.
My lord, you tell strange news to me.
But nothing strange to me, who every moment knew of his despairs. The couriers came so fast with fresh alarms of new revolts that he, unable quite to bear his fears, which he had long concealed, is now revolted from himself and fled.
Thrust with reports and rumors from his seat. My lord, you know the camp depends on you as you determine.
There it lies, Antonius. What should we do? It boots not to rely on Nero's stinking fortunes and to sit securely looking on. We're to receive an emperor from Spain, which now disgraceful it were to us, who, if we weigh ourselves, the most material accessions are of all the Roman empires, which disgrace to cover we must join ourselves betimes, and thereby seem to have created Galba. Therefore I'll straight proclaim a donative of 30,000 sesterces a man.
I think so great a gift was never heard of. Galba, they say, is frugally inclined. Will he avow so great a gift as this?
Howe'er he like it, he must avow it. If by our promise he be once engaged, and since the soldier's care belongs to me, I will have care of them and of their good. Let them thank me if I, through this occasion, procure them so great a donative.
Exeunt Nymphidus.
So you be thanked, it skills not who prevail, Galba or Nero. Traitor to them both. You give it out that Nero's fled to Egypt, who with the frights of your reports, amazed by our device, doth lurk for better news, whilst you inevitably do betray him. Works he all this for Galba? That not so. I have long seen his climbing to the empire by secret practices of gracious women and other instruments of the late court. That was his love to her that me refused, and now by this you would give the soldiers favor. Now is the time to quit Poppaea's scorn and his rivalry. I'll straight reveal his treacheries to Galba's agents here. Next scene.
Sorry, I was unmuted. They exit Antonius, and Act 5, Scene 3, enter Tigellinus with the guard.
You see what issue things do sort unto. Yet may we hope not only impunity, but with our fellows, part of the gift proclaimed.
And the guard says, "Here he comes," and Nero enters.
Whither go you? Stay, my friends. 'Tis Caesar calls you. Stay, my loving friends.
We were his slaves, his footstools, and must crouch. But now, with such observance to his feet, it is his misery that calls us friends.
And moves you not the misery of a prince? Oh, stay, my friends. Stay, hearken to the voice which once he knew.
Hark to the people's cries. Hark to the streets that Galba, Galba ring.
The people may forsake me without blame. I did them wrong to make you rich and great. I took their houses to bestow on you. Treason in them hath the name of liberty. Your fault hath no excuse. You are my fault and the excuse of others' treachery.
Shall we with staying seem his tyrannies to uphold, as if we were in love with him? We are excused unless we stay too long as forced ministers and a part of wrong.
And everyone exits apart from Nero.
Oh, now I see the vizard from my face, so lovely and so fearful, is fallen off. That vizard shadow, nothing, majesty, which like a child acquainted with his fears, but now men trembled at, and now condemn. Nero forsaken is of all the world of truth. Oh, fall some vengeance down equal unto falsehoods, and my wrongs might I accept the chariot of the sun, and like another phaeton consume in flames of all the worlds, a pile of death worthy the state and greatness I have lost. Oh, were I now but lord of my own fires, wherein false Rome yet once again might smoke and perish, all unpitied of her gods, that all things of in their last destruction might perform a funeral honor to their lord. Oh, Jove dissolve with Caesar's world, or you whom Nero rather should invoke black chaos, and you fearful shapes beneath, that with a long and not vain envy have sought to destroy this work of the other gods. Now let your darkness cease the spoils of day, and the world's first contention end your strife.
Enter 2 Romans.
Hang on. Though others, bound with greater benefits, have left your changed fortunes and do run whither new hopes do call them, yet come we.
Oh, welcome. Come you to adversity. Welcome, true friends. Why, there is faith on earth. Of 1,000 servants, friends, and followers, yet 2 are left. Your countenance, methinks, gives comfort and new hopes.
Do not deceive your thoughts, my lord. We bring no comfort. Would we could, but the first duty to perform, and best, we ever shall, a free debt to persuade, to cut off hopes, to fiercer cruelty and scorn, more cruel to our worthy soul.
The Senate hath decreed you're punishable after the fashion of our ancestors, which is, your neck being locked in a fork, you must be naked, whipped, and scourged to death.
The Senate thus decreed, they that so oft my virtues flattered have, and the gifts of mine, my government preferred to ancient times, and challenged Numa to compare with me, have they so horrible an end sought out? No, here I bear which shall prevent such shame. This hand shall yet from that deliver me, and faithful be alone unto his lord. Alas, how sharp and terrible is death! Oh, must I die? Must now my senses close? Forever die, and ne'er return again, never more to see the sun, or heaven, or earth? Whither go I? What shall I be anon? What horrid journey wanderest thou, my soul, under the earth in dark damp, dusky vaults? Or shall I now to nothing be resolved? My fears become my hopes. Oh, would I might! Methinks I seek the boiling phlegeton, and the dull pool, feared of them we fear, the dread and terror of the gods themselves, furies armed with lynx, with whips, with snakes, and my own fury is far more mad than they, my mother, and those troops of slaughtered friends. And now the judge is brought unto the throne that will not leave unto authority, nor favor the oppressions of the great.
These are the idle terrors of the night, which wise men, though they teach, do not believe, to curb our pleasures fain and aid the weak.
Death's wrongful defamation, which would make us shun this happy haven of our rest, this end of evils, as some fearful harm.
Shadows and fond imaginations, which now you see on earth, but children fear.
Why should our faults fear punishment from them? What do the actions of this life concern? The t'other world, with which there is no commerce?
Would heaven and stars necessity compel us to do that which after it would punish?
Let us not after our lives' end believe more than you felt before it.
If any words have made me confident, and boldly do for hearing others speak boldly this night, but will you by example teach me the truth of your opinion, and make me see that you believe yourselves? Will you by dying teach me to bear death with courage?
No necessity of death hang o'er our head, no danger threatens us, no senate's sharp decree, nor Alba's arms.
Is this the thanks thou dost pay our love? Die basely as such a life deserved. Reserve thyself to punishment and scorn of Rome and of thy laughing enemies.
They exit, leaving Nero.
They hate me 'cause I would but live. What was't you loved, kind friends, and came to see my death? Let me endure all torture and reproach that earth or Galba's anger can inflict, yet hell and Rhadamanth are more pitiless.
Re-enter the first Roman.
Though not deserved, yet once again I come to warn thee to take pity on thyself. The troops by the Senate sent descend the hill and come.
To take me and whip me unto death, oh, whither shall I fly?
Thou hast no choice.
Oh, hither I must fly. Hard is his hap who from death only must by death escape. Where are they yet? Oh, may I not a little bethink myself?
They are at hand. Hark, thou mayst hear the noise.
Oh, Rome, farewell. Farewell, you theatres, where I so oft with popular applause in song and action. They come. I die.
He falls on his sword.
So base an end to all just commiseration doth take away, yet what we do now spurn, the morning sun saw fearful to the world.
Enter some of Galba's friends. This is either a separate scene or a continuation. Some of Galba's friends, Antonius and others, with Nymphidus bound.
You both shall die together. Traitors both, he to the commonwealth, and thou to him, and worse, to a good prince. But is he dead? Hath fear encouraged him, and made him thus prevent our punishment? Then die with him, fall thy aspiring at thy master's feet.
He kills Nymphidus.
Who, though he justly perished, yet by thee deserved it not, nor ended there thy treason. But even thought the empire, through the empire thou conceived Galba's disgrace in receiving that which the son of Nymphidia could hope.
Thus great bad men above them find a rod. People depart and say there is a God.
And they exit. So, Nero dies. What an artist dies in me. And yeah, it took him a while to get there, and I wasn't enjoying the process. I really enjoyed Nero. I mean, even when he was doing long speeches, they were really nice progressions. They were involving other things. I don't know if I've just got a bit bored of people dying at great length. in Act 4. That's taken the edge off a bit. There is something to be done with that. I like the fact that Nymphidus, having done this betrayal, is killed at the ending as well. There's something quite nice about that. But people depart and say there is a god.
Well,
it doesn't quite stick the landing. I mean, I think in performance with adjustments it can. The second half hasn't been anywhere near as successful as the first overall. I have to say, there's a lot of blue pencil in my version in my head at the moment. But the bones are there, so there's some good stuff. But there's just a little excessive deathing going on here. There's someone really enjoyed doing some death. Lynn.
Yeah, the whole Nymphidus thing. I mean, I don't object to him getting his comeuppance. He's not a good person. But the second half of this play spends so much time having people philosophize about the nature of death and what it means to be noble. And it doesn't really tell us how Nymphidus wrongfoots himself and gets on the wrong side of the new powers that be. He was convinced the last time we saw him that he was going to make it out on top. So what happened there? I really feel like the play is saying a lot of stuff that we don't necessarily want to hear and isn't telling us something we need to know.
I don't know. I was sort of, it's the case of you don't trust people who've betrayed their previous master. I mean, we get that in quite a few things. It's almost like you don't need to say it because we've covered it in other texts. Alan?
I think you've also got a motivation for Nymphidus to be disposed of, which is the large donative that he's done the unfunded tax cut.
Yeah.
Aliki?
Yeah, I don't really remember my Roman history, but I think that bit is important, the unfunded.
Yeah. Other thoughts? I say the ending. I think the shape of it's sort of fine, but it's just there's just a little too much emphasis. It's like Antonius is sort of reinserted into the plot in a way that almost works, and I'm not wholly against it, but there's a sort of, you can sort of feel the gears grinding a little bit in this half. But I did say, actually, the first half was a little too short and we needed to cut the second half down a bit. So in many ways, I think we found our answer. It's quite, the second half is probably quite fleet of foot. In fact, at the moment, I'm going, it's probably only 45 minutes long, which is fine. 1 hour first half, 45 minutes second half, 20-minute interval. Job's a good one. That makes me happy. Lois.
Yeah. And one thing I think that you should do in your production is actually show Nero performing the part of Orestes. I mean, you don't have to show the audience, but we should get a glimpse of him somehow doing that. Nero acting, Nero singing. I don't know. It's just because, particularly the fact that he thinks that he is really killing Agrippina again. I think that something or other of that could come in.
I think Agrippina needs to be in it. I think that her ghost is lingering, standing over his shoulder a lot. I do wonder if there's some mileage because it is seeded in his character all the way through the play. It is a really nice psychological point that I really like, is that they don't go on about it. It just keeps popping up, and it's really quite neat and tidy. And I really like that, which is why I find some of the other stuff quite frustrating.
Yeah.
You can feel there's a playwright who's possibly he's just enjoying himself too much writing this stuff, and we're not enjoying it as much as him. I'll go to Lynn, then Lois.
I don't remember what I have heard about Nero's actual fall. I think maybe he did in fact commit suicide, but I don't remember ever having heard or read anything about the Senate condemning him. I'm not sure that was actually constitutional in ancient Rome. That's just really weird. The Senate never removed another emperor that I know of. It's like, I don't think they would do that. And what really kind of makes me go, woo, is that 15, 18 years after this play was published, a legislative body voted to execute a head of state in England, which was unprecedented. It's just, I mean, nobody's going to get that, but it's just this weird little prescience of what's going to happen in the English state in a generation.
I don't know precisely the mechanics of Nero's fall. My knowledge of Nero pretty much falls apart once Christopher Biggins stands over Derek Jacobi's corpse, and from that point onwards, I don't know what happens. Beyond the outline here, so I don't know the mechanics. I mean, it's possible if the Senate, saw the incoming regime that they did, and they but it didn't actually matter. It was just a sort of thing to just say, "Hi, we're on your side, new people." Lois, then Aliki.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look at Quo Vadis, but I seem to remember that that depicts Nero's suicide. And I think there is something where he is told something about the kind of punishment that he might be facing. I mean, that novel is fairly historical. I'd have to look at Tacitus, though. I think I've actually got that because this is one of his juicier books, obviously.
Yes, there's a lot of fun to be had with the various early Caesars, actually with the later ones as well. But this is the area of narrative that mostly is percolated to modern culture. Aliki.
Well, I wonder whether the playwright thinks you already know all of this, and therefore is just doing the juicy bits that he enjoys doing, which is all the death, philosophizing, and dying, because it doesn't really matter to convey the plot because everybody knows what happened.
Yeah, might be a bit of that. And, we know it's going to end with him dying because it's a tragedy and he's the title character. So, and even if you don't know precisely what happens to Nero, you probably have a pretty good idea knowing what happens to most Roman emperors. It's very rare for them to die in bed. Not at least without someone holding a pillow over their face. Allegedly, depending on your sources. Lois, and then we go around for final thoughts.
Oh yeah, it just occurred to me that the reason Otho is mentioned is that I think he's the one who succeeds Galba. Rather unlikely prospect, but so I think again, if we're assuming that the audience knows all this, that the next emperor in line is Otho, then Poppaea's one mention of him is much more significant than you might think. Aha, yes, they think. I think this is for people that know an awful lot of classics. I mean, I keep recognizing bits of translation. I think that's one reason we get all these death speeches. I mean, there is so much of that in Roman poetry.
And yes, it doesn't. It so far it hasn't. It's felt like it could function perfectly well as a more open text. I mean, until about that Act 4 excessiveness, it really was. It was doing an awful lot of stuff that you would expect from any play from any company, any starting point. Whereas, Act 4 and to a degree Act 5 is doing something slightly different. Aliki, then we'll go to final thoughts.
And we had a mention of Vespasian earlier as well in a sort of throwaway scene, and he's the final one of those 4 emperors who succeeded Nero. So I think that might be true. That's why I don't remember who the other one was, if he gets mentioned.
Oh.
Yeah, is it a case of little name checks to go? Tick that box. Did you hear that one? Oh, is it more an Easter egg than anything more? Okay, well, I think we've talked a little overall about, or certainly I have, about my feeling, about this. I really like so much of this, and I think most of the issues can be solved with some judicious trimming in the second half and a little bit of trimming in the first. It's not a desperately long play to start with, so we can't get too trigger happy, but I suppose you could run it much shorter without an interval. But I mean, it hasn't ended quite as well as I'd hoped. I was hoping for a tighter finish, but it's still a contender. I'm still quite pleased with it on the whole. In a way I wasn't fully expecting. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I want to sort of piggyback on Lois's sense that there's a lot of Latin original in English translation here. because for a slightly different reason, I really get the feel from this text that it's was written by somebody whose second language was Latin, who was like so steeped in Latin that some of the sort of linguistic habits of Latin poetry have sort of bled through. The syntax is very, very difficult at some point. And in Latin, the words can be in almost any order because of the word endings tell you how the words function. And in English, that's not as true. So with there are sentences where the order of the words is like where's the main verb, and the object of the main verb is like the first word. It's like so the syntax can be really hard to parse. And I think maybe that's a symptom of somebody who's in the habit of writing and thinking and reading in a word word order is much more flexible than it is in English. So one of the things that one would need to work on to make this performable is getting your actors to parse the syntax in a way that makes sense, and maybe in fact rewriting some of the lines and rearranging the word order into something more normative for English. So that's something I think that really needs to be looked at, in addition to the sort of uneven, the first half is kind of full of action and political stuff happening, and the second half is a little heavy on the speechifying. So I think there are two things that need to be addressed there.
Yeah, there's some layering. I'm not so sure about the flow of the dialogue myself. I do think it's a matter of really working on it. I don't know if we need to change it. I just think we need to, especially once we cut it down a bit, some of that will probably be solved. Lois, any final thoughts?
Yes, well, I was going to comment on Antonius's last speech there, just because it's an example of the kind of thing I think an actor might be able to make it clear, but it's their whole string of pronouns that aren't explained. I mean, Galba says, "Fall thy aspiring at thy master's feet." Then Antonius says, "Who, I take it, is thy master, Nero, who, though he justly perished, yet by thee, that is Nymphidus, deserved it not. Nor ended there thy treason, but even, assuming that thought is the right word here, thought the empire." And then I guess that the next bit, I'm not sure if he's addressing Galba himself. "Thou conceivest Galba's disgrace in receiving that which the son of Nymphidia could hope." In other words, the empire has become worthless if somebody as worthless as Nymphidius could expect to somehow reach it. I mean, I think that's all quite interesting, but the question is, could an actor, in fact, get that across?
Yes, I think there's some punctuation things to move around as well there. I don't think it's arranged there in a way that gives us much of a chance. I think we just have to start from first principles. Saying about the death there, actually, also, I do wonder whether actually, almost, I might move it around and have him run on and die before Nero. I know that's not what the dialogue says at that moment, but I quite like the idea that we don't end on this moment because it feels a bit anticlimactic. I do feel we possibly should end on Nero's death. I don't know. I'm just speaking out loud. That may not work. But there's something, and other people could die at the same time as well. I quite like the idea that there's a bit of a palace purge going on. Let's just let the bodies fall all over. Eric, you've only been here for a reasonable percentage of this session. Any final thoughts to throw in?
Let the bodies hit the floor. No, that's copyrighted. Anyway, it's I don't know. This is an interesting play in terms of what it's doing. I'm just wondering how the suicide scenes were played back then, and also how they'd play today. Because, I mean, does this have a performance history as far as we know, or
not that I'm aware of?
Because it's just sort of death. It's sort of politics, death, and then it just kind of goes, right? Yeah. I don't know. But I can see how you can make it very relevant today as well.
I mean, the thing is, a lot of these deaths are off stage. I mean, they're talking about, I'm going to go off and now die, rather than actually seeing it. So it is following a sort of neoclassical style. But I say the rest of the play isn't like that. It is more dynamic, and it is doing some really interesting, very theatrical devices with the way it's using asides and playing with space. So it's not quite as clear cut as saying, this is following a neoclassical way of writing a play. It's somewhere in between, and it's doing something really interesting there. I'll go back to Eric.
I'm just wondering if you could use some of the, because we did some of the Seneca and translation stuff a while back. I don't remember how far back, but anyway. And I was wondering if you could integrate that, but then it's kind of weird because Seneca appears in this, which is kind of like that Octavia play that we did. I don't know if we actually did it yet or not. Anyway, time's weird.
Seneca does appear in a play that is attributed to Seneca, but isn't actually by Seneca.
Yeah. So it's kind of, I don't know, it might be interesting to look at those as a parallel and sort of fill in, if you want, stuff. But there's 14ers in those, which are kind of weird.
Yeah, they're very different texts, the way they flow. But you never know, it might be able to mix and match. And there may be some other plays that overlap with this one. There are more Nero plays, some of them in Latin. So there's plenty of material there. Lois?
I suppose there's also Sejanus, in fact. I mean, it'd be kind of interesting if you did a very, very heavily cut Sejanus and then went straight into this, especially after the treatment. Agrippina and her sons are so important in Sejanus.
Definitely the idea of fitting as many of these Roman history plays in together as a sequence is very much in my mind. I don't know how many gaps in the service we have, but I think we've got a pretty flowiness to everything. I don't know if we really get anything on Caligula. I don't think off the top of my head we really do.
Yeah, which is surprising. Since he was
but I could be wrong.
I think we got a mention of him in Sejanus, maybe. There was a mention of him being exiled to Capria.
But we don't have his reign in that sense. But I could be wrong. He might feature in a play. There might be a play about him, and I'm not aware that the title refers to it, if that makes sense. Anyway, where were we? Alan, any final thoughts?
What got me confused is the whole shape of this is very different to most of the tragedies we've done, which tend to start off fairly slow and then accelerate into complete carnage later on. Whereas this one was quite bouncy in the first half and then seemed to have run into a patch of treacle. With the very extended death scenes. And I think to a certain extent they do serve a purpose in as much as you've got the nobility of the deaths shown in 2 or 3 cases, which is an interesting contrast to Nero's flights of fantasy on he's the once and forever king. And I think you've got to be careful you don't actually lose that contrast in whatever trims are done. But the whole shape just feels funny.
Yes, we get midway into Act 4, and yeah, you're right. It just sort of suddenly gets a bit stodgy. But I think we can maintain that we have these suicides or situations where you're going to get killed anyway, and maintain that sense, but still keep the sense of momentum. It's a difficult balancing act, and we probably won't be able to know whether that works until you get into rehearsals, you get into performance, and there might be adjustments as you go. Aliki, any final thoughts?
I think we've pretty much covered it all. I think the writer was very interested in how Romans dealt with death, and maybe too interested for the good of the action. I agree the syntax is really difficult. I'm very cross with myself that I made very wrong choices about how to play it in a couple of places because of that syntax. And so I'm cross with the writer. But other than that, I think there's fun to be had here. There's an interesting history play. Let's see what it does further.
Excellent. Well, that's it for this initial look at the Tragedy of Nero. Other Neros are available. We will get round to them at some point. All that remains to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Whip me unto death.